Green light, show them what you got.
Hello, folks, and welcome to another edition of PPR Esports. I am your host, Besteon, coming to you live from the Zolder circuit. You'll have to pardon the earlier interruptions, but we have made it. We are on the track now to bring you all the racing live from our ACC division. It is our Sunday night series. I am very excited to be here. This has been one of the most competitive grids we've seen in recent time. This division is hot off already two very exciting races this season, as well as the PPR Cup that was held at Silverstone over the summer this year, where we raised roughly about $10,000, I believe, in support of the Huntington's Disease Foundation of the United Kingdom. So, if you're joining us, that's what's going on. I'm Besteon. You can also find me hosting the Xbox Division 1 here at PPR Esports on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. I also race in the PC Division 3, so I'm a little bit all over the place, but I am always excited to do a little GT3 action as open-wheelers. As fun as they are, there is a certain level of tact, delicacy, and finesse involved with these GT3 cars that, it's a very special kind of racing. And we've got probably two of the fastest drivers there on the front row. We have Sable and Niels there lining up in 1-2 as we have 30 seconds to go till the start here. Folks, a little bit about the Zolder circuit. I'll go ahead and pull that information up in just a moment. The Zolder circuit is going to be, it's a pretty short lap around here, only about 10 corners. You're going to see a lot of good overtaking opportunities into the chicane at turn 5, as well as the kind of awkward hairpin at turn 8. It looks a bit like a Hockenheim hybrid if you're looking for a bird's eye view, but it's pretty cool. Not a circuit I'm actually very familiar with, so we'll be learning and growing together today, folks. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to always expanding my knowledge as we get ready to get racing here now. In just a moment. Niels leading Sable off of the line there. And the green flag should be flown in just a second, folks, as we approach the line.
Green line, green line.
There we have it, folks, and we are underway now from Zolder into turn one. Let's see Niels and Sable getting a clean getaway there. Niels as the inside line there. Let's see if he can hold it there. The McLaren, though, looking very planted as it now tucks in behind the Audi down the first straight here into the downhill right-hander. Let's see Hannah getting a good start there in front of Warren in the Team Lexus livery. A lot of these cars already looking to be fighting it out. Sable there holding position well, now on board with Moriarty, Sosa, Trujillo leading Marsh, Kowalski, and Cody Pride there as Ruiz in that Ferrari is already closing up now on the back of this little pack here on board with Cody Pride. Let's have a look. Slipstream already playing a factor. You want to stay in the train, folks. These cars are like barn doors, so it is crucial to keep pace, to keep on that bumper. Oh, he's going to check and move to the right side here. Very bold move, taking it around the outside of the left-hander. See, late on the brakes, maybe into the right-hander. No, just a touch far back. That GTR will be thinking about the move elsewhere in this track. Good defense by Kiyakowski there. Looking up the order now, Marsh already tucked in behind Trujillo. Very quick track here today, folks. You don't see too many slow braking zones, except maybe for the hairpin upcoming here. You'll see that kind of long right-hander. A lot of the cars will Constantine are up there. This train is getting very close already. Trujillo leading Marsh here. Sosa, Moriarty, Warren tucked in now in that Lexus RCF. Looking to get past Hannah as Niels is starting to build the gap on Sable already. Sable under pressure from Hannah, though, in that Mercedes AMG, looking spicy in that red and silver livery. Down through lap one, folks, it is Niels leading Sable, Hannah having a look around the outside, Warren and Moriarty. Those are your top four. Hannah really trying to have a look up there now, getting very, very touchy to these first couple of corners. On board now with the Mercedes. Let's have a look here. These cars, of course, can use a lot more curb. These are technically road cars in essence. They kind of use a carbon fiber tub and they strip out a lot of the extra bits. I don't think anyone's really got seat warmers unless they're feeling extra toasty. So far, though, it is Niels leading Sable and Hannah, as Warren is kind of the cork in the bottle now for this train behind him of Moriarty, Sosa, and Trujillo. There you have it, folks. That is the timing sheet at the moment. A quick look there, starting to take away from the action. Your top 10 at the moment, it is Niels, Sable, Hannah, Warren, Moriarty, Sosa, Trujillo, Ruiz, Lopez, and DeBon. Behind them, it is Couch T, Laws, Johnson, Sierra, Coffin, Martin, Kiyakowski, Warda, Pride. Looks like Cody Pride having a bit of an issue there on the opening lap. Marsh, Tellis, Buck, Hendricks, and bringing up the rear, it is Wardell. Little train here being led by that McLaren as they fly into the downhill left-hander. It's a lovely little corner there into the right-hander of that chicane. I believe that is from turn 8 into turn 9, if I'm not mistaken. See, Sable really trying to get that McLaren turned on here. Mercedes still threatening him and keeping him under a lot of pressure, folks. Of course, folks, there is one mandatory stop in this race. Other than that, it is totally up to the drivers. If they want more fuel, if they want fresh tires. Small track like this, track position will be very key, so you do not want to come out behind a train of cars that haven't pitted yet. You will find yourself desperately out of position down the stretch of this race. That's Christian Hannah there in that red Mercedes. Good to see I have a name to a face now. Already putting Warren under pressure now. As Trujillo's going to keep this little foursome in check here. rest of the order. There's Ruiz leading Lopez now. Couch leading DeBon, Johnson, Laws, Sierra, Martin. There's a nice little overtake going on here. That's Cody Pride now trying to stick it. We're on the outside as Coffin runs very wide, and he's into the gravel. Oh, and he's spun. That Lamborghini is off the circuit, folks. Cody Pride will say thank you very much. It looks to be the Lamborghini of, I have no clue, to be honest with you, but somebody is off the circuit. So we head now to the first 6 minutes of this 90-minute race, folks. This is PPR Esports, ACC. Cody Pride here on the hunt, trying to make his way back up the field. Not sure what happened, maybe a spin of some kind. Back in the field, there's Tellis there in that beautiful-looking shell liveried Ferrari. Wardell in that BMW trying to go up the inside of Warda there. Folks, one of the keys to a successful 90-minute race, really, although a track like Zolder seems to be very heavy on overtaking, not quite as difficult as maybe a track like the Nürburgring. We saw a lot of cars being a little too far back to make moves. That was Coffin there in that PPR liveried Lamborghini that spun off. Gorgeous looking car, that one. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of tire management. Fuel savings, ultimately, it's personal preference. I'm not much of a fuel saver. I don't like to underfuel either, so I really just try to keep it within a pretty easy margins there as we go. Now up to our first place car. That is Neil's leading Sable there, as Hannah still keeping the McLaren in check in the opening stages of this race. Warren being under pressure from Moriarty now. Head into the chicane. Let's go on board with Sosa, who's kind of the tail end of this train. Let's have a look what is on board now into the left-hander of the chicane. Oh, he's going to run very deep there. Really missing his braking point. Really undone a lot of the good progress he had done earlier. But he's still very much in the hunt. We'll go on board, though, with Moriarty here in the R8. Really looking to get past that Lexus. Warren defending for his life at the moment. So, folks, obviously, since this is a race against the clock as opposed to a race against a lap chart, ultimately, it really won't be a lot of pressure early on to get overtakes done, even though this certainly does seem to promote it. But it really seems to me to be more about staying in that slipstream. And like I mentioned before, track possession is so key at a place like this. Great camera angle there. Look at the back of the Lexus now, into the hairpin. Sean Moriarty of the Bulldog Racing Team was trying to pick a good line. Warren really just trying to hold station here. He's going to the helicopter cam. He's closing up down the straight now into the left-hander. Lexus will want to pick its braking points carefully as to avoid finding itself. Definitely don't want to start falling back because you will get swallowed by the pack as it stands. It seems the top three runners here are kind of sailing off into the distance. There you have it, Christian Hanna on the back of Sable as Niels is kind of comfortably out in front. Niels having that very controversial season opener, having contact with Sable on the very final corner for the podium. So certainly lots of drama here that isn't quite on the surface, but we'll have to keep an eye out for that later down in the race. Now, Warren still defending against the Audi. Audi getting real close. They're going to use plenty of exit curb. That does hurt your exit speed. As you can see, that's the Porsche of Sosa already behind Moriarty, taking advantage of that egregious mistake that was costing himself all of his exit speed. Now Moriarty's thinking more about defending than attacking, folks. Keep an eye on this battle to stay spicy. Very, very tense at the moment. Trujillo also now in the mix there in that bright yellow Lexus. Folks, of course, these are GT3 cars, very different than that of Formula One. I can only assume most of you have just made your way over here from the Grand Prix earlier today. Not quite the race we had all hoped for at Spa. Nobody really wanted to see a Mercedes 1-2. Alas, that is what we've come to know. But the regulation changes are 2 years away, so we'll have to see what happens with Lewis Hamilton and Toto Wolff. Until then, though, folks, quick little insight for the uninitiated. You might be thinking to yourself, well, what's the difference in the racing? Well, GT3 cars are not like F1 cars in many ways, most notably the fact that these are closed-wheel racers, meaning they have a body on them, unlike a F1 car that has a monocoque. These cars do have a rear wing, as you can see, but they mostly rely on a mechanical grip, which is the contact between the rubber and the track. So momentum really is the name of the game here. Same in F1, but you have a lot of aerodynamic grip that lets you kind of push the car over the regular limit of what physics would allow through certain corners. Take, for example, Spa going up Eau Rouge. A lot of these types of cars will have to lift off coming through there. An F1 car can take that flat out. They're glued to the ground. Yeah, these cars, it's very different. You can kind of rub in as racing. Definitely a lot more of the case in GT3. You can make contact and reasonably get away with it as long as you're not pit maneuvering someone into a grapple trap. But other than that, we'll have a look in just a moment as I bring in my commentary partner today. And we are now live here with Brian Faluna. Brian, my man, how are you doing today?
Oh, it's a beautiful day here in the desert of the Mojave here in sunny California right now. How are you doing today, Best?
Well, not much different out here in sunny Miami. A couple of clouds in the sky, but definitely a nice, very beautiful Sunday here. I hope you guys aren't getting too much of the smoke from the Bay Area at the moment.
No, it seems to have mostly cleared out. Shout out to all the firefighters here in California doing an outstanding job coming together, getting these things under control. So, we've had some effects here where I'm currently at, but it seems to be subsiding. And, again, shout out to the firefighters here and the emergency responders in California for really getting on top of that and keeping us safe.
Yeah, definitely. Always a big shout out to our first responders who do a lot for us as people. Paramedics, EMTs, firefighters, you know who you are. Give yourself a nice big pat on the back and have yourself a nice cold beverage on this sunny Sunday. In the meantime, natural occurrences aside, Brian, we got a little GT3 racing to talk about here. How are things looking from the race director chair?
Yeah, it's obviously you can see Niels up front. The Audi has really suited him well this year, and he's been able to build a pretty substantial gap already to Sable, which is actually kind of surprising. I would have thought those guys would have been kind of tied to the hip. But you can see Moriarty, Sosa, Trujillo, and Warren. Those guys are just nose to tail, just lapping around.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a great little train back here, as it looks like Moriarty's still going to try to have a look up the inside of Warren. Warren's been defending ferociously here in the opening stages of this 90-minute race.
Oh, absolutely. I think, Zolder being as narrow as it is, it's a premium on where the passing opportunities are. So one of the key things here is really to kind of lull your opponent into a mistake. Maybe just sticking the nose of your car in a place where they don't expect it, particularly into that braking zone, just to get them a little offline, create that gap that you need just to get ahead of them.
I did see that earlier. Sosa kind of misjudged his braking points because Moriarty kind of broke a little later than maybe Sosa was expecting him to, and Sosa found himself running deep into one of the chicanes here. Interesting track, this Zolder. It's not a lot of corners, but it makes for some pretty fascinating racing from what I could see so far. Very Hungaroring-ish, very tight, very, tense. It's not really quite as, Silverstone-y where people are, sending it around the outside of Cop's Corner or, trying to go side by side through Maggots and Beckett's. It is very much a pick and choose your battles type of deal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would expect nothing less from Circuit Zolder. I mean, the home of DTM in itself. and a great
Sosa's been
venue.
spun. Sorry to interrupt you there, Brian. Sosa has been spun out by Trujillo. Trujillo letting off the gas there to let the Porsche back by, knowing that was certainly his mistake. So good sportsmanship there. Sorry to interrupt you. First little bit of drama in today's race from what I can see.
Oh, yeah, that's unfortunate for Sosa. I mean, last year's champion seemed to be having a bit of a struggle this year in that Porsche, but I fully expect him to bounce back. I think he'll probably lose a little bit of time there, probably from that rear-end contact, but he should be able to make that time back up because, James seems to be a bit of a cork in the bottle for that original four-car train. And this is a great track for the Porsche, honestly. The short wheelbase on there really allows it to kind of take a little bit more speed through some of these slow speed sections. So I think he can make that time back up.
Interesting. So I was about to ask you, in fact, I'm glad you brought that up. You are certainly more ACC oriented than I am. What are some little insights maybe you can give to the casual viewer out there? I've kind of explained the basics of aerodynamic grip versus mechanical grip, how GT3 differs than an open wheel series, but I know the cars kind of come down to personal preference. So you say the Porsche is going to be kind of the car du jour for this circuit.
You would think so. I had a chance to drive it last year. I absolutely loved it. It is definitely a driver's car. It definitely takes a certain skill level to really master that car to make it fast and consistent around a track like this. But the shorter wheelbase on the Porsche is just fantastic for medium and high speed sections. It can just carry so much more speed through corners. Unlike, say, the Bentley here at this track, probably not a preferred track for the Bentley being a long wheelbase car, heavy front end,
A bit
but
like
still a
trying to
phenomenal
get
vehicle.
trying to get a Lincoln Town car around Hong Kong.
Probably, yeah, or maybe the Macau Grand Prix circuit when the F3 does that, trying to muscle that big twin turbo V8 around there. Probably not the best of things, but yeah, GT3 is a whole different beast to, I think, what a lot of people are seeing. And I think, if they really started to get into it, they would see that it's probably some of the best, if not the best racing out there. It's a lot more parity, a lot more competitiveness. And the BOP that is instituted by SRO and replicated here in ACC is phenomenal. So at any given time, you can be very quick in any car combo on just about any track.
How does the balance of power work in GT3? I know F1's making a huge fuss over the regulations, and budget caps, and wind tunnel time. How does GT3 implement those kinds of regulations?
Well, typically what SRO does, if you're talking about sprint versus the endurance series, it could be something as simple as, say, a power restriction where they reduce the amount of airflow into the intake system so the car can't make as much power. It could be a ballast in terms of additional weight, plus or minus. And that's the thing that makes GT3 great, is that the stewards, they tried their absolute best to ensure that is the most competitive series out there so that no one manufacturer can just spend limitless amounts of money, which is what you see in F1. Typically, the teams that spend the most win the most. And GT3 really discourages the teams to just spend insane amounts of money to gain a tenth of a second here or there, because the teams know that it's just you got to make the best car within the limitations of the regulations, and it helps the competitiveness.
They call it the box rule. Do whatever you want as long as it stays inside the box.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like they say, you can build a car that can be to this in terms of the drag coefficient, or it has to be to this power to weight ratio. And that's why you see such diversity out there. I mean, you've got the twin turbo V6 in the GTR, all the way up to the V10s in what we've seen in the past in the Audi. The previous generation Aston Martin GT3 had, I believe, a V12.
Yes.
And
That's right.
Yes. And so, that's what makes it great. Different powertrains, different powertrain layouts, front engine, mid engine, or the Porsche being the only one out there is the rear engine, and different displacements. And that's what I love about GT3 racing. I believe it's hands down the best racing you're going to see out there.
Would you mind sharing with our viewers at home what your favorite car is in the game?
I've always been a bit preferential towards the Mercedes. I think it's an absolutely gorgeous car. It drives beautifully, very well balanced, very consistent. But each year that I've done league races, I always try to try something different to, increase the repertoire. Try to get better. To kind of quote Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, you're never really a 10, and there's always room for improvement. So, last year I decided to hop in the Porsche. Humbling experience, as one of the game developers, Eris, said. It's the most difficult car to master, but when you do, it is extremely rewarding. So I took that challenge on last year, and it was extremely rewarding. Thanks to watching videos from him and listening to insights as well from Niels Nayaks about how to properly use Motec. That really helped me really understand better, to get those cars in the range. Um, this year I decided to take on the Audi, slightly different beast, but again, I think very well balanced, very quick car, very consistent, and yeah, each year I like to try something different. I don't like to just stick to one car.
Now, would it be worth asking, does that Porsche like to swap ends pretty easily, being a rear-engine car and all?
I never found that problem, and once I got to know how to drive it properly, I think when you overdrive that car, and it's just like any car, it can bite you pretty hard. But if you drive within the limits of the vehicle's capabilities, not to say that you can't take it to the limit and still be fast, but if you drive within the limits of the car, I mean, it will reward you. It's when you try to make it do something it's not willing to do is when you're going to start to have those kind of issues.
Certainly, certainly. That's good to know. I myself am very green when it comes to ACC. I think I've played this game a total of 4 hours in my lifetime, and it's usually just spinning around Spa in a Ferrari just because I want to feel cool. And there's really no more to it. I like feeling that adrenaline of being on the edge and being in the cockpit. I'm flying up Eau Rouge in a 488, and I'm like, yeah, I could do this in real life, even though I probably couldn't. But it's a nice thought.
I mean, yeah, that's the beauty of a simulation like ACC. We all get a chance to indulge a bit. You're driving cars that are maybe $250,000 US, or maybe 800,000 euros, and you really get to kind of test your metal with few consequences. Depending on your setup, if you go all in on, say, a direct drive and you want to crank it up to 25 newton meters, and you can really feel the wrist snapping feedback, probably a bit unrealistic, albeit, but yeah, if you really want to crank it up that much, I mean, you'll feel the liveliness of these GT3 cars. And that's one of the great things about them. They've got a lot more slip, so you can slide the cars a little bit more. You can be a little bit more aggressive. Quote unquote, manhandle the car a bit.
I'm always
Um,
amazed by how much curb these guys take, and they just plop it right back on the circuit like nothing happened.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of that's going to come down to just either the car type or how people have tuned their setups. Um, soft, stiff, maybe something a bit balanced. And some cars are just better at taking curbs than others. And it's just, again, the beauty of GT3 racing is, um, I would say, generally speaking, I think you're always going to get beat by the better driver, albeit some tracks do suit certain cars better than others.
And this is not what we would consider a power track by any means, really.
No, absolutely not. This isn't going to be like the Monza race where, who's going to be the last of the late breaker, but also be able to carry the most amount of speed down the main straight, down the back straight, through Ascari. Really, through here, I think you put a big premium on mechanical grip, especially as you go through, particularly like the Villeneuve chicane, or chicane number two, if for those not familiar with the naming convention here. How you take the car through there properly with mechanical grip as well as your suspension setup really is going to pay dividends. You hit that one wrong, just like the first chicane, you could end up either in the gravel trap, or you could come back on the track and maybe spin out. And I guess, unfortunately for Sebastian Vettel, recently he's kind of been known as the spin master. And you don't want to do that to yourself, but Yeah.
I was going to say, let's take it easy on Ferrari fans. I think Maranello's in mourning right now.
Yeah, it goes through its ebbs and flows. You got to feel for Ferrari, a historic team, um, as a manufacturer and also and as an engine supplier. I mean, they've been there the longest consistently. So F1 is made better when all teams are competitive. So
2012 certainly comes to mind.
oh, absolutely. I think there was 7 winners and 8 races or something of that regard.
And
Fantastic.
four drivers in contention for the championship at Yas Marina.
Yeah, it was great. Hands down, probably the best modern season in Formula One in terms of competitiveness.
Well, the rumor around the block is we're going to get that back in 2022, but the jury's going to be out on that until we actually see rubber meet the road in Melbourne.
Yeah, one can only hope. Unfortunately, this race is turning into a bit like a Formula One race. You can kind of see a bit of a processional going on here. Everyone's kind of maintaining their position and pace.
Yeah.
I think we'll start to see that tighten up a bit when we get to the pit stops, and it's going to be interesting to see the different strategies between those who've gone light on fuel and are going to try for. Oh no! Looks like we got a spinner.
Ooh.
Looks like one of our GTR runners has
like
lost
Cody
it
Pride.
coming out of the chicane. Looks like he recovered pretty nicely. I don't think it was quite Cody. It looks like maybe our second GTR runner. Maybe been Garda there, number 87. Yeah, I think he just had a little bit of a moment coming out of the Villeneuve chicane, or either the first chicane, and I think he just clipped it on the curb a little bit there.
A little too much mustard, as they like to say.
Yeah, probably a little late on the braking, and probably got a little too much curb. But he seems to recover it pretty nicely, get it back on the track. Doesn't look like too much cosmetic damage or major damage to the performance. Probably heated up his tires, maybe flat spotted him, but should be
that's
good
right.
to continue.
GT3, there's a whole other layer of damage. I forgot you can kind of clatter the cars if you're not taking care of them over those verstoppers, as they're colloquially known.
Yeah, you can definitely get a little bit of suspension damage. It takes quite a bit to, especially on the anti-cut stuff, to really get some suspension damage. You'll see a lot more of that when you decide to go 90 degrees into a wall, or maybe a pit maneuver somebody by accident. But yeah, it looks like he's pretty fine to continue.
That is good to hear. I'll have to apologize, folks. I hope Brian's sultry voice was enough to give you the imagery, because I have been keeping the camera here on this nice little 3-car battle from Johnson to DeBon to Kwiatkowski here. It is an Aston being pursued by a Lambo, being pursued by a Porsche. So basically your average day here in South Beach. That number 69 Lambo looking pretty pacey on the straights, but looks to me as the Aston's just keeping a hair in front here with that V8 power.
Yeah, it looks like he's able to pull that gap out as soon as they get to one of the, I wouldn't say straighter portions, but especially coming out of Villeneuve, he seems to really be able to get the power down into the upcoming hairpin and really start to kind of edge that gap back out. But the Lambo comes right back at him in these braking zones. So, now you're getting ready to see this battle between power versus maybe a bit more aerodynamic and mechanical grip. Who can hold out the longest and stay consistent.
Yeah, the Lambo, in my experience, has been a pretty squirrely car to drive. I haven't found it to be particularly balanced in any way.
It's one of those cars that definitely takes some time to get adjusted to, but I believe just kind of like the Porsche, when you can get it right and it can really, you can drive it to the max, it will reward you as well.
DeBon here staying within about 3 or 4 tenths of the Aston in front. Kwiatkowski also keeping DeBon in check here. Nice little train we've got going. Pull up my timing sheet real quick, folks. Don't mind me as we look at the track map here. Got a couple cars in a battle. We got a little train here. The number 113 car. Not sure who that is. I'll have a quick look.
Looks like we got P. Couch in the NSX. Yeah, him and number 20. Mr. Laws seem to be going at it in another train as well between Couch, Laws, and Wardell.
Just getting the cameras over there now. I got eyes on him as well. That's a Honda leading a Porsche, leading a something or other. I just lost view of it.
Looks like looks like one of our few
Bimmer.
BMW M6s out there.
Bimmer in an M6. You don't see those that much on the road, really.
No, you don't see them too much in competitiveness, and it's going to be going away as BMW look to transition to the M4 GT3 starting on the 2021 season in SRO next year.
You know, I've seen those M4s around town. They are very good-looking cars, and I'm not really much of a Beamer guy. And even then, I was kind of thinking to myself, you know, I could look good behind the wheel of one of those.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the M4 is going to be able to do next year. You know, there's been a lot of writers and commentators that have been talking about, you know, it's a curious decision by BMW not to bring the GT3 car, I should say, out this year in its M4 configuration. Maybe kind of hoping to close that gap to some of their competitors a little sooner, but either way, we'll be happy to see BMW continue in SRO. It'll be great for the sport.
Would I be incorrect in saying that BMW is focusing more of its efforts on Formula E at the moment? Or would that be the case? I'm not entirely sure. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I think, you know, they've been committed to Formula E along with some of the other major manufacturers, particularly the German manufacturers. But I think, you know, everything that's been going on recently with the COVID-19, a lot of manufacturers are just kind of, you know, pulling back and taking stock of where they need to apply their resources. And, you know, the beautiful thing about Formula E is it's a standardized chassis that everybody runs. So there's not a huge amount of cost overrun and investment that they have to spend to maintain that program. Not to say that it's not expensive, but it's far less compared to, say, a traditional F1 program. Oh no, looks like Laws has gone off.
Oh.
The M6 is going to get ahead of him. Looks like Wardell's going to take that freebie and gain a position going forward.
Very unfortunate for the Pink Panther there, who will drop back to P15, but he's still on the back of that Beamer. Looking ahead, though, it does appear to me as though, if I can move ahead in the order here, sorry, folks, Debon, Kiyakowski train really been starting to get a little chippy here. I was on board with Kiyakowski. He's been bump drafting Debon here. Maybe his fuel load's getting lighter, or maybe Debon hasn't really been looking after the tires, but I would say there's an overtake on here in a few corners time.
Yeah, certainly possible. I mean, you know, if he realizes he can't get past them, one of the beautiful things about that Porsche is the selectability of all the engine modes. So, you know, if he realizes he can't get past them, maybe he just drops the fuel map down a little bit, and saves some fuel behind him, a little lift and coast, and kind of use the undercut to his advantage during the pit stops. So he's got some options here if he can't find a place to get it a move on.
Now, with that said, with the undercut here, I know that a tire change isn't required under PPR Esports' rules for this race, correct?
Yeah, correct. So we leave it up to the drivers. You know, we do mandate a pit stop, but it's up to the drivers to determine, you know, what strategy is going to work best for them. So as you know, some of the viewers probably saw in the last race at the Nürburgring, we had a multitude of strategies. You know, the Lexus combination of James Warren and Walker decided to go long, kind of fuel save, and see if they could work that to their advantage. And they were able to get into, I believe, the top two positions for a little bit of time. I know Moriarty last race decided to go for the no tires, just a splash and dash. And, you know, the downside was he was losing probably about 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap. But, it looks like Kwiatkowski may have a run on Debon here.
On board with Kwiatkowski now into the downhill left-hander. This Porsche is flying at the moment. Debon going to Constantine her up there. He's going to have to slam on the brakes through the chicane. That Porsche is all over the place. Guarda all over the circuit, just trying to get out of the way of the oncoming cars. Big snap of oversteer there. That will cost the Porsche now into the second stage of this little battle we've got going. But Johnson got to be looking in his rearview mirrors, wondering what the heck is going on back there. There's cars kicking up dirt, flying over curbs. This is a really, really fascinating little trio as they turn the corner here. Debon in that slipstream. Kwiatkowski just trying to stay within touching distance here. Devon probably not going to look to force the move yet. Going to want to keep this going for a little longer, but Kwiatkowski looks incredibly eager to go on. Brian, in your professional opinion, is that Porsche turned all the way up at the moment?
You know, I think he's trying to find his moment. You know, a little bit of the RPM. You know, be respectful of the guy in front of him. You know, but still trying to maintain some patience. I don't think he wants to wear his tires out, and he's trying to look for that moment where he can force Debon into a mistake and really capitalize. But you know, he certainly looks like he's got the pace if he can get past Debon, and then maybe further past Johnson. You know, he might be able to crack into the top 10.
Wait, folks. I think this is the move right here in the slipstream now. This Porsche is flying, folks. Devon's going to go to the right side. Is he going to send one up the inside? No, he's not. He's going to think better. Look for a better exit speed through the chicane. Let's see now. Power down for that Porsche. Devon to the middle of the circuit, moves back to the left. Johnson sticks to the right now into the downhill left-hander. Let's see what line are they going to choose into this hairpin. Everyone taking a bit of a, into the chicane. Taking a steady line through there now, going on board with our broadcast cams here. Let's see. Kwiatkowski really putting the pressure on, but Debon is cool as a cucumber right now and not letting it get him off kilter, as they say. Into the right-hander, let's see. Kwiatkowski just going to lift off just a touch there, look to get back on. A little snap of oversteer. He really, really wants this move done. ASAP Rocky. Down
yeah, and it looks
straight.
like as well, like Debon is really trying to get past Johnson. I think he realizes that if he doesn't get past him eventually, Kwiatkowski is going to end up putting a move on him, and it's just going to put him further on the back foot. And I don't think that's where he wants to be right now. I think he also realizes his Aston is holding him up as well.
Yeah, Johnson certainly being the cork in the bottle. We got Hendricks there into the pit lane.
Yeah, this is probably when we're going to start to see some of our, I'd say, mid-tank runners, you know, some of those folks that went between about 75 to 90 liters. You know, they're going to start to look at pitting. And you'll probably see a lot more here in about the next, I'd say, 8 to 10 minutes.
I was going to say that 45-minute mark is usually when the pit lane becomes very lively. Ooh, the Porsche getting a great run here. That Lambo's looking real slow. They're going to stick to the right-hand side of the track through the chicane. Kwiatkowski is putting it on. That Lambo looks like a stricken animal. Oh, they're going to go side by side now down the hill. Let's see, folks. We're on board with both these drivers with the helicopter cam. Another chicane coming up. The Porsche is going to have the inside line. There's a little bit of contact there. The Lambo's going to be pushed over the curbs. And, oh, that's Kwiatkowski now up in position. Kwiatkowski up. But the Lambo's coming back at him. Going to have the inside line through the right-hander there. This is scintillating stuff. Pushing the Porsche onto the grass. Kwiatkowski going to have to do it all over again.
Yeah, I think he really tried to put that move on him there. But, you know, one of the things I noticed is coming out of turn 3, it looks like the Porsche is having some struggles with understeer, and he's just not able to put that power down to really force Debon into a mistake into that first chicane. But he definitely took his moment there, and I think he really tried to force Debon into that, and he probably thought he had the move done. But Debon had second thoughts there, and he was determined to keep P12.
Certainly. Kwiatkowski going to try to set one up again. Debon certainly wiping the sweat from his brow as we head through to the 50th minute of this race. Brian, when you say force someone into a mistake, can you maybe describe what the physicality behind something like that might be as a driver? Like, what's the positioning like there? How does that all work?
Yeah, so unlike, you know, what you see in Formula One where, you know, the cars really struggle to get close to one another, and, you know, the recent race at Spa kind of showed when they talked about, you know, up to 7 seconds away, you know, a car's going to be dealing with the disturbed air. You know, GT3 doesn't have that problem, so you can stay in very close proximity. As you can see here by this Lambo and Porsche, almost nose to tail, almost tethered to one another. And so when you want to put your opponent under pressure, you just keep it up, and maybe you stick that nose in there, you brake just a tad bit later, and it forces them to, you know, look in their mirror, either their rear or their side mirror. They brake a little late, they go too far, they lock a tire, and they lose that momentum coming out of this, particularly these slow speed corners. But you got to pick your moments, because if you're not paying attention, you know, the lead driver and the following driver, you know, if they're smart about it, they're watching to see where they're strong, where their opponent's strong, and that's where they're going to pick their moments to really try to force that issue. But if you wait too long, you'll never get that move done, because they're going to know, you know, okay, they're always strong here. This is where they're going to put the move on. I'll take a bit more of a defensive line. And it just becomes a veiled thing where you just start to get hot under the helmet. You get a little bit of that red mist, and you get frustrated, and then you get desperate.
It feels very, very. It's kind of more like the kindred continuation of karting. From my understanding, is a lot of like club karting over in the UK. It's always about just picking your moment. You're not really just kind of keeping your foot down and just overtaking into every single braking zone. You're really just kind of thinking, okay, guy in front of me slow here, he's fast here, pick my moves here. You're not quite opening that barn door on the back with a DRS button and flying by them.
No, not at all. I mean, you're just you got to find your moment, and it can be very difficult once your opponent knows where you're strong and where they're weak. So you have to be very cognizant of it. And if you wait too long, I mean, as you can kind of see here, it almost looks like Kwiatkowski may have burned his tires out a little bit much. So the smart money on him might be just to hold back, maybe try again, or go for the undercut. Maybe a little less fuel if he's been fuel saving, and take his chances.
That would certainly be as go by the book, as they say. But he's staying in touch with D-Bon, but Johnson got to be pretty happy about all this kerfuffling, because he's kind of sailing off into the distance now. So he's built up about a 2-second gap there.
Oh yeah, he's probably thankful these guys are going side by side and just saying, thank you for the additional gap. You guys keep squabbling. I'll be good out front.
Looking at the top of our order now, folks. Let's go ahead here on the circuit, see if we got anything happening. Looks like Cody Pride here trying to close up to Trujillo. We've got Sosa in a bit of a back marker mishmash right now. Moriarty on the back of Warren there. Warren just kind of comfortably in P4, not really sweating it. And there's Hannah also still running P3, so not too much has changed at the front from what I can see. I'm looking for Sable, who looks to have closed up to Niels now. This is going to be less than a second between these two.
Oh yeah, they've definitely closed that down to looks like he's right outside of a second. And it's a little curious of what happened to Hannah there. He had phenomenal pace in qualifying, but to be 19 seconds off, either he's heavily laden with fuel or he must have had an off somewhere to really drop him almost probably about the time it's going to take him in his pit stop when he's stationary. So I'm kind of curious what happened to him, why he's fallen back so far.
I did see him following pretty closely earlier. It is possible he might have burned a lot of his rubber trying to stay in touch with that McLaren.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. I mean, Sable has been absolutely rapid in the McLaren this year. He was just as rapid last year in the Porsche. So it's pretty clear that he's a highly adaptable driver.
As Sable dives into the pits there, it would seem. So there you have it, folks. That is the Niels will have to think about how he's going to react to this, as Sable's going to get the first stop done and dusted. Brian, are we able to see if the pit crew runs out and fits tires here, or is it all done like on their own screens?
No, you'll only see that on the screen there, and I think that's just for optimization purposes. That's just one less thing to kind of bog your system down. So, you'll see the car, get turned off. It'll pop up on the air jacks, which are pre-installed on all the vehicles. And they'll either fuel him with what he needs and give him a fresh set of boots, or depending on if he's gone on to a different alternate strategy, we'll see what he's going to do here. It's going to be pretty interesting.
Now we'll be Niels will have to be doing a bit of addition and subtraction in his head about how he's going to want to play this one. Seems to me the gap between them was almost negligible. So if he were to pit right now, and let me pull up my handy dandy lap chart here. Let's go to timetable. So here are intervals. So that looks to be gap between the cars. So Niels pits right now. Pit stop takes what, about 30, 40 seconds in GT3?
Yeah, it really depends on the track. I mean, especially like Spa. I mean, you decide to hop into the pits there, it's going to be about a lap's worth of time. So you're looking at almost about 2 minutes plus at Spa. But a place like here, it's definitely sub 1 minute. You're probably, you could be looking anywhere from probably about 30 to 45 seconds.
Speaking of,
depending on.
Look who just went into the pits. Niels.
Yeah, it looks like Niels is going to, I think he's realizing very quickly that Sable was catching him in a hurry and very consistently, so I think it's in his best interest to get that car in the pit.
Yeah, he will have to cover him off then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think he wants to risk losing a possible victory here.
And folks, back on board with Eric Debon, still under pressure from Kiyakowski. It seems these two, like as to quote Brian, are certainly tethered.
Still a long way to go.
There you have it, folks. As you can hear from race control, that is 45 down, 45 to go in our ACC GT3 Round 3 from Zolder. I'm Besteon, joined by Brian Faluna, and we got a bit of a tense one, folks. This one's a slow burner. If you like slow cooking, then you're in the right place. On board now with Kiyakowski in that slipstream of Debon, neither of which have seemed to find any daylight between themselves. Interestingly enough, neither of these cars have pitted, correct, Brian?
No, they haven't, and you know, the way we can figure that out is on the graphics. Unfortunately, it looks like we're having a bit of a technical difficulty there. Graphics are not wanting to play quite nice with us today. But, you know, you'll see the number sign with the 1 or however many mandatory pit stops there are, and it's typically going to be, you know, orange or amberish in color. And then those that have completed, it'll show green, that they've met the mandatory requirements as determined here by the race director.
Which would be you.
That would be the case, yes.
Hear that? If you're sitting at home on your bingo cards, talk to God. You can go ahead and cross that one off. We have found him. He's in the booth with me. Kiyakowski still on the back of Debon. Coffin here, trying to close up to Buick, it would look like. Not sure what's happening there. Lot of mishmashing between back markers and cars on the lead lap at the moment. So.
Oh yeah, these pit stops are really going to throw a wrench in the lead lap cars. I mean, they're going to have to kind of fight their way through the blue flag cars, and this isn't a great place. I mean, you're really going to have to wait until you get to one of these, you know, very short straightaways to do it, because once you get into sector 2 and 3, I mean, it's a pretty much a single race line, and once you get off of it, you're going to get marbles. It's only going to bog you down.
Yeah, those marbles so detrimental to these cars. How would you describe tire marbles and their effect to the layman, Brian?
Well, I won't pretend to be an expert on that particular part of the racing, but you know, basically the marbling is basically the pieces of rubbers that just come off the tire over time as the tire scrubs against the surface. It builds up. You know, it's kind of hard to see that from the GT3 cars because they are having fenders that cover them. But as the cars slide, they go through these corners. They touch the curbs. You know, little tiny bits of rubber heat up and they rip off of the tire, and naturally they're going to start to collect. And as you know, our viewers will see off the racing line, just based off of the aerodynamic wake that's created from these cars, they just get pushed off of that line, and they start to mass and collect.
It's a bit like a bunch of dust bunnies under your couch. Would that be kind of a generic comparison? By the way, folks, sorry I interrupted you, Brian. Looks like Kiyakowski has in fact gotten moved on Debon. Debon probably going to want to pit soon.
Yeah, I think that'll bode well for Kiyakowski if he can pull a little bit of a gap here to Debon, and then put it in the pits. I think he'll be a lot happier because I think he's got the pace. It looks like he's probably about at least half a second a lap faster than Debon in that Porsche, because he was able to just easily catch back up to him after just a couple of laps. So I fully expect him to start to pull away little by little here, and then probably put it in the pits and see if he can't edge that gap out longer, and maybe get himself into, I don't know, maybe get himself up into the top 10, or even, I should say, perhaps the top 5.
He certainly got the track position at the moment. We're going to take a quick look at the front of the pack here, folks. Pardon me, as Sable is already on the back of Niels, folks. We're going to take a brief break from that midfield battle because we could potentially be looking at the battle for the lead. And my understanding is these two are fighting for the championship, correct, Brian?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Niels, Sable, and our current championship leader, Moriarty, and last year's champion, Sosa, are definitely probably the top 4 favorites. Niels, first year here in the league, it was absolutely fantastic out of the gates in the first race of the year, and he's really been maintaining that pace in the Audi. And Sable has been giving him a phenomenal run. So these two are probably, I would say right now, probably the 2 quickest right now in this year for the season. and they have been putting on an absolute show throughout the entire year so far.
Now, you have to remind me, how did all that post-race drama play out at the Nürburgring? Niels coming into contact with Sosa in that final corner.
Yeah, so I believe, when the stewards got together, they looked at it. They took both drivers' perspectives. They reviewed the footage. They looked at the telemetry. And, it just looked like unintentionally Niels probably braked maybe a tad bit too late and got into the rear end of Sable. I don't believe there was any intent or malice in that regard, but he unfortunately did gain an advantage from it, and he did end up getting a penalty for it. I believe, if I remember correctly, I think it was about a 28-second penalty, which would be equivalent to a drive-through.
That is
I think
not
he
a
still
slap on the
maintained
wrist.
P2, though.
Goodness. 28-second penalty.
Yeah, as we go through and the stewards look at things and we assess the drive-through penalties post-race, obviously each track having a different length of pit stop, or I should say a pit lane, is going to really determine if it's when we apply those post-race drive-throughs. Spa, for example, that would probably be somewhere on the magnitude of 120 seconds for a drive-through there, just because of how long the pit lane is for the GT3/endurance pit lane. But you come to a place like here in Zolder, and that may only be 25 seconds or less, just because it's so short.
By the same token, those intervals between the cars is shorter as well.
Yes. Yeah, it's looking like Sable here is just edging closer and closer to Niels, and I don't think he's going to let him out of his sight.
And neither will I.
Yeah, it looks like it almost looks like both drivers may have gone with the same strategy of just fuel only, no tires. It didn't look like the mechanics, put the car on air jacks when they did their pit stops. And kind of looking at their lap times, yeah, it doesn't look like their tires are falling off too much. So I would say they probably both just went for a bit of a splash and dash there.
Yeah, Sable, right on the gearbox of that Audi now. His car should be lapping low 130s at this stage, maybe 132s, 133s as the rubber disintegrates.
Well, it looks like Sable and Niels are in probably the low to mid 28s here, according to the timing sheet.
My goodness.
Yeah, these guys are setting an impressive pace. I don't think there's anyone that's going to be able to keep up or catch them at this rate, especially at this track. They are certainly in a league of their own this race.
Certainly feels that way. Sable keeping the pressure on here as Niels now is on the back of Johnson, who we saw earlier was the cork in that little midfield battle. That is I believe it's the McLaren 720S there, correct?
Yes, you are correct. That is their GT3 spec, and in that fantastic-looking McLaren shod livery, looks absolutely gorgeous.
I had the opportunity the other day. I was cruising around Coral Gables here in Miami, and there's a place called The Collection. For those of you car enthusiasts, when you come to Miami, just go there. It's free. You walk in, and it's a showroom for all the exotics, and you can pretty much just take your pick of what you want to get. I got to see a lot of the McLarens up close, and I even got to see a P1 for the first time in person, and it was pretty magnificent stuff. The bodywork on those cars is incredible.
Yeah, it's always a treat to check out some of the... Oh, looks like Sable might have had a bit of a moment here. Yeah, I do believe my feed is a little bit...
No, your feed is correct. I'm watching the same thing you did. You dropped all four onto the grass there, and his intervals just shot right back up.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to lose a little bit of time. I'd be curious to see how he's going to make that up. It looks like Niels is going for a little bit of a cheeky slipstream there, going into the final Jackie X chicane for the famous Le Mans winner. For those of you who aren't aware, one of the absolute legends of motorsport, Jackie X.
And a Grand Prix winner, Jackie X, as well.
Yeah, fantastic, and it was fantastic further to see him get a corner named after him at the legendary Spa-Francorchamps as well.
You said there's a Villeneuve corner here. Is that after Jacques?
So the second chicane named after, I believe, Gilles Villeneuve.
Okay.
Yep,
Gilles.
The legendary F1 driver, as one of watch Top Gear or now the Grand Tour, seen as one of the greatest F1 drivers ever. But the second chicane, yeah, that's the Villeneuve chicane. And then the final one going back onto the main straight, that's Jackie Ickx. And I can't for the life of me remember the name of this first one. But I know it's probably named for another legend of the sport as well.
I have the track map right here. Just one moment. Pull it up for you right now.
But yeah, it looks like Sable should have the pace to catch back up once he can get through some of this traffic. Should be able to catch back up to Niels.
Talk about Klein chicane.
Okay, yeah, Klein.
Christian Klein.
Probably, yeah. I've heard it in the GT3 series back in 2018. They were calling it the Bootsen chicane.
So that's on the map as well.
So
yeah.
they may have updated the names over time, but all these corners themselves are named for absolute legends of the sport or local community areas. Here in Belgium.
I definitely thought Zolder was in Germany. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's one of the phenomenal sets of tracks that they've got in Belgium as well. It's an absolutely gorgeous circuit, and I can see why people love it so much.
Funny to me how Belgium's kind of like, it's not really known for making automobiles or producing like big name racing drivers. I mean, obviously you have the Stoffel Van Dorns of the world, but as a whole, it's not really like the epicenter of the automotive industry, yet they've got two of the most famous circuits in the world there.
Oh, absolutely,
it's very curious the way that worked out. Oh my God, Sierra, what was he? That was dangerous.
Yep, Sierra will probably get a little bit of a talking to from the stewards post-race about that, but I don't think there's anything nefarious there. I think he was trying to get out of the way and probably got a little too eager there on the loud pedal.
Certainly looked that way. I know there have been issues in the past of back markers taking out people on the lead lap, primarily in the ACC division. I know you've had a front seat view for some of it yourself. It happens. I mean, the blue. My understanding was that you have to race them with the blue flags, or are they duty bound like an F1 to get out of the way?
So, when we think about it in the real terms of SRO, I mean, you're still allowed to race your race, but, you can't hold up the lead lap cars, unlike in Formula One, where, during their drivers' briefings, they'll mandate a certain number of blue flags that you'll get before you have to get out of the way or receive a penalty a la Sergio Perez in Barcelona.
He got hit with that, and it didn't even look like it was that egregious, but he went over that limit, as you said.
Yeah, and in his case, when they posted up the post stewards notes, he started getting blue flags at turn 5, and he didn't let Lewis by until the front straight. So, in his case, pretty clearly, obviously, an earned penalty for him. It's unfortunate because he definitely had the pace advantage on Stroll, but I think all the drivers agree of what's going to happen. Oh, and it looks like James Warren. Going for the slightly longer strats, pulling into the pit lane now in his Lexus as part of Team Flexus with Luke Walker.
These two guys had to. I don't want to poke fun, but their little strategy they tried to pull at the Nürburgring was it almost worked, but unfortunately they just kind of ran out of luck at the end.
Yeah, Luke Walker said, in kind of the post-race discussion. I think he said that they underestimated the amount of fuel by 1 lap. And if they would have added that additional, say, 3 or 4 liters, I think he would have shocked a few people who weren't expecting that strategy. I mean, I don't think anybody was.
So, folks, if you're listening at home, hire Team Flexus to do your taxes. They'll be sure to leave off that extra 0.
But, they had a fantastic strategy in the Nürburgring that really seemed to help them out. And they applied a very, I wouldn't say similar, but a very different strategy than others when we went to the Hungaroring that really paid dividends, and that put them at the front of the front of the pack.
So with that said, then Jay going deep again on this one. Could he be trying for the mega strat, the overcut? Could he find himself maybe trailing Sable and Niels in the closing stages of this race?
You know, I don't know if he has the pace this race. You know, looking at his lap times, he's been consistently lapping almost about 8 tenths to about a second slower. I mean, Niels and Sable are just, they are in a league of their own this race. I mean, they have got their setups dialed in, and they are just able to push at will. But I think, you know, once the 88 of Trujillo and the 31 of Lopez pit, um, you know, Warren, if he can fight his way up there, he could be potentially looking at a podium. I mean, it would only take a single mistake from Moriarty for him to catch right up to the back of him and really put him under pressure he wasn't expecting.
And speaking of Moriarty, folks, we're going to take a quick look at our timetable here so we can get a quick update on everyone's positions. Moriarty there is running P5, as you can see, according to our timing chart, about 1.9 behind Lopez. But, folks, at the moment, this is the order. It is Trujillo, who is yet to pit, I believe, leading Niels, leading Sable, leading Lopez, Moriarty, James Warren, Kwiatkowski, DeBon, Hanna, and Sosa. Those are your top 10. It looks to me as there are only 9 cars on the lead lap here. As this is a short lap around here, you would not be that surprised to see a lot of cars already falling back on blue flags. Behind them, it is Marsh, Cody Pride, Ruiz, Johnson, Walker, Couch, Juarez, Mirsky, Wardell, Martin, Tellis, Laws, Sierra. Bringing up the rear, it is Warda in the GTR Nismo GT3 there. But yes, folks, looking at the chart, closest battles at the moment, you got Sable and Niels sticking close, and it looks as though Moriarty here is also getting pretty close to Lopez, if I would be correct in saying that.
Yeah, you know, even if he gets up to his rear bumper, I mean, there's no need to fight him. I mean, he's still looking like looks like it's saying about almost 9 seconds away. Lopez still needs a pit, so that's not a fight that he needs to try and take on and try to catch up to him. I think he needs to worry about that Lexus that's going to start filling up his mirrors very quickly, I think, here in the next couple of laps, because James has seemed to pick up the pace a little bit, and it's starting to look like Moriarty might be struggling with that Audi here in the second half and the later stages as we close out the race.
Yeah, it looks to me as James has closed that gap now to only about 2.5, 3 seconds there as they head through turn 1. Folks, 27 minutes to go in this ACC race. This is PPR Esports, brought to you by Best Teon and Brian Faluna here, bringing you all the action from the Zolder circuit in Belgium, not Germany. 27 minutes to go. Looking on board with James Warren. He is definitely reeling him in now. Curious. Let's go back on board with Sable here. Freddie Lopez, though, he looks to be flying through right now. Has he pitted yet?
No, Lopez still needs to pit, so you know, he's clearly on the alternate strategy. Him, Trujillo, looks like Kwiatkowski, Marsh, they still need to pit, so these guys are definitely going for the alternate strategy and trying to go long, and you know, hopefully on low fuel they're hoping to put in some very quick laps to gain that time back.
Speaking of gaining time, folks, on board with Sable, and he is now very much within spitting distance of that Audi of Niels into turn 1 here. Niels definitely going to be seeing that papaya car getting bigger and bigger in his rearview mirror. I would say Sable's going to try to send the move in a few corners' time and he can close up. Would you concur, Mr. Faluna?
Yeah, I think he's going to try and find that opportunity. He's going to study where Niels is strong and weak, just like we've talked about before. And you kind of see the Audi struggling a little bit with understeer there on turn 3 exit. So, you know, if he can get a good clean exit there on turn 3 and maybe get a bumper, even perhaps side by side into that first chicane, into the clean chicane.
Ooh, he's going to try to stick it around the outside. He switches back to the inside. Wow, that was a brave move by Sable there. He's going to try to keep it around the outside. He'll pull out of that one, but crucially, Brian, if you're looking ahead on the circuit, there is a nasty bit of traffic these two are approaching right now, and they are fighting it at the same time.
Yeah, I think Sable's probably realizing it. You know, if he can get ahead of him where this traffic's at, maybe even throw a sneaky one up on him somewhere, he can potentially put a car or two between him and start to build a gap.
Ah, yes, the old bait and switch, or switcheroo as we know. I'll overtake you, but I'm going to throw a couple back at you. I really have no idea what the name is for that, but I like the idea. It's very devious, and I like devious racing when it's executed properly.
Oh yeah, when drivers really start to scheme and they understand and they're very smart about what they do, it can make for some fantastic racing. You've got the guys and girls out there who are, they'll be super aggressive, a la Hamilton in his early days when he was fighting Fernando and McLaren in 2007, or Max when he came into the league and made the transition to the big boy team at Red Bull. Very aggressive, but you've got those who are very calculated. They take their time, a la Alain Prost back in the 80s and 90s. They called him the professor for a reason. So it's great to see this battle here between these two. Although it looks like it's going to get a little delayed with some of the back markers kind of getting in the way. No fault of their own, just bad luck.
Going right over the dirt there. If I was Sable,
Yeah,
I think Pooh might have come out. I thought that Porsche was going to go straight on.
Yeah, that might have been a bit of a Code Brown moment there, but he definitely was like, I just want to get out of the way, and I'll let the stewards take a look at it. I don't think they probably won't see anything devious with that, trying to gain time or position.
I like that Code Brown. But as you can see, folks, that traffic, unfortunately, has not played into Sable's hands, as Niels has been snaking his way through, and that gap is now extending. What was only about a couple of tenths looks to be about a 2 to 3 second gap now, so Sable will have his work cut out for him here. Only 23 minutes to go in this race, folks. The move does have to get done, as overtaking here does come at a premium. Ruiz coming back across. Is that for position? No, it is not. A Ferrari going to get out of the way now. Sable cannot be happy about that one, but he's now got some clear air. He can get back towards Niels here. D-Bon going to be out of the way there. Niels just putting the pedal to the floor. That Audi sounds like a vulture screaming down the straight through the chicane. Using plenty of curb there. Sable in the slipstream of D-Bon. Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. This traffic is he's just seemed to have a lot of run of bad luck here with this traffic, has Sable. Niels has seemed to really luck out and catch them either on the straightaways or well before the braking zone, and he's been able to take clear advantage of that. But Sable has definitely demonstrated the pace to catch back up, but it might take him a couple of laps, I would suspect, with his pace. Probably about 2 or 3 laps to really see him back on that bumper, pressurizing Niels for that win again for P1.
Yes, this is certainly the battle to watch here. Sable now looks he's got the gap down just a bit.
Niels has got a drive-through.
Wow. Was that Brian?
It looks like he may have taken some liberties with some of the track limits somewhere. Wow. Probably hurt him with some of the back markers.
I was going to say, as race director, I thought you would have. You sounded as surprised as I did. I'm like, wow, that Audi just went straight on at the pit entrance. What's that about?
Yeah, it looks like, the automatic stewards that are in the game, when you exceed the track limitations, you get 3 warnings, and on the 4th one, you automatically get the drive-through. We do have a review process where if you're trying to avoid somebody for legitimate reasons, the stewards can review it and remove that penalty. But it is still up to the driver to report that. The stewards cannot legislate things that is not reported to them.
That's a great point there. So, folks, with a twist of the plot, with only 20 minutes to go, Sable has inherited the de facto lead of this race, as that looks to be. Let's see here. Is that true?
It looks like he's fallen behind James Warren, who was running in P5. And it looks like Warren's going to be in P4, which is a provisional P3 when Trujillo pits.
Weren't you just saying something about that, Brian?
I mean, he may pull off the perfect alternate strategy here. Unfortunately, his teammate looks like he had a bit of a moment at the beginning of the race. Looks like either he spun on his own or he got a little bit of a love tap from somebody at the beginning. But I wouldn't be surprised to see this as a consistent thing here from Team Flexus, going with the alternate strategy, and getting themselves in the podium positions, at minimum, at least the top 5 throughout the season.
Well, it's not entirely the worst move to make, because if you can't do it on the optimal strategy, you always have to give yourself a chance and at least try something different.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be interesting here. it definitely looks like the Audi of Niels is much stronger than that Lexus. Even surprisingly so on the straightaway, but I don't think Warren is going to fight this. I think he knows that that's not his fight. Why waste time and lose it?
Speaking of going on board with, let's see here, where is that sneaky Lexus? Shift
Yeah,
left. There we are, James Warren, right behind Niels. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I think James took the smart move there and just let him pass. Maybe following his slipstream a little bit. Maybe even hope Niels can force Moriarty, our championship leader, into a bit of a mistake, and maybe capitalize on that.
Oh well, what do they call it? The Moses effect? Just follow him through. No point in getting into a fight.
Yeah, I think one of the famous stars of YouTube. I believe he races in the NASCAR series on a other platform. I believe he calls it, quote, Moses, which surprisingly seems to be very prophetic and a very profound statement.
And Niels and Moriarty are really going out of here. Moriarty fighting for championship points. He can feel that at the moment. That red Audi going to look like Clifford the Big Red Dog in his mirrors, folks, into the penultimate corner here. Going to defend valiantly, but Niels looks to have the metal of him. That pace is down. The Audi's going to pull out to the right-hand side. Moriarty going very defensive, trying to squeeze him against the barrier. Niels going to switch back to the inside. Who's going to go later on the brakes, folks? Niels might have gotten the move done, sticking up the inside. Moriarty's gone very wide there. James Warren got to be thinking to himself, all right, these two are squabbling. It is my turn to get in on the action, but Moriarty will fall back to P3. Niels up to P2 to try and chase down our boy Sable. Though only 18 minutes to go, folks, it would take a miracle of godlike proportions for that gap to come down.
Yeah, it looks like it would definitely take a pretty Herculean effort for him to close that gap. He would need some sort of moment by Sable. So I think as long as Sable keeps it safe and clean, looks like he's our provisional P1 at this time. And, Warren, he's caught up to the back of Moriarty now. And I think he's sniffing at that P3. He's just right there to get that podium.
Yeah, Warren definitely wants it here. Really sticking close to Moriarty. Moriarty, I'm curious, do you have the timestamp on when he pitted?
Yeah, we can take a quick look at that as we look at the timing charts. For him, it looks like he pitted around, say, lap 33 for him. Based off the time, looks like he only did about a little under 30 seconds there. So he probably went with a no-tire strategy as well, just fuel only. And it doesn't look like it's hurt his lap times too much either. It looks like with the way the track's rubbering in and the low temperatures, it seems like you could double stint your tires and not lose too much time.
Yeah, and luckily, most of these ACC tracks do take place in temperate climates. You won't see ACC going to the Gulf Shores anytime soon.
No, you won't. Although, when we get to tracks like Paul Ricard, that tends to be a track where, depending on the time of year, can see very high track temperatures, even into, say, the 41 track temp. Really going to cause the cars to slow down and make for some very brave maneuvers there. But I think we lucked out this time of the year, time of day for this race. Early morning.
Oh, Moriarty!
Like for Moriarty.
Oh, folks, that is, if you ever ridden a Razor scooter as a kid and tried to bunny hop the curb and miss, well, you just saw that in real time. That Audi is doing the spin there, and that will probably be day done for Moriarty. He will just try to get that car home in one piece. So, folks, Moriarty out, Warren in no man's land. Niels looks to be nursing about. Let's have a look at our timetable. I'm not seeing a, it says +1 lap at the moment. My goodness.
Yeah, there's typically a delay here from when the leader goes across the line to those that follow. So that's just a bit of how the timing is going to work on this. So once he crosses the line, we should get an idea.
Here you go, folks. Cross the line now. That's going to be a 29-second gap there for Niels. So 29 seconds, 15 minutes would be, to quote you, very Herculean indeed. So he is sitting in 128s, 127s, so he's got the pace, but I just don't think there's enough time left in this race for him.
No, I don't think so either. I think, even running mid-28s, I mean, he would need Sable to be running almost in the 31s, 32s to even get back onto the rear end of him. So I think he may have committed himself here to P2. That unfortunate drive-through for track limits, which any driver can succumb to, unfortunately.
Looking down the rest of our field, folks, we got a tasty little battle forming here from Hannah and Trujillo. It's the battle for P5. Trujillo opting for the super strat, going really, really deep into the first stint. He's come back out. Hannah looks to have pitted just a little bit earlier than him, but these two will probably be duking it out towards the closing stages of this race. Hannah, of course, who was running in P3 for most of that opening stint. So nice little run by that Mercedes driver. Still a bit left in this race to go, though.
Yeah, Hannah in his first season here with us, I think he had a phenomenal qualifying getting into the top 3 here, but it's unfortunate. I was very keen to see what he was going to be able to do. It looks like he's got a little bit of front end damage. Looks like that front end on his hood is flapping a little bit, probably causing him a little bit of loss of lap time.
Yeah,
that may explain why he. Looks like that may explain the reason why he ended up losing that 19 seconds earlier in the race. But still looks like he's got enough pace to keep up with that Lexus of Trujillo.
Yeah, Trujillo. The Lexus is it's a fascinating car to me because in my head it's a front engine car, but since it's tuned a lot differently than maybe the likes of the Mercedes, it looks to be pretty quick in the corners.
Yeah, the Lexus isn't too bad. I mean, I don't think it's quite as balanced as the Mercedes. I think the Mercedes is probably the best balance of the front engine cars with a great combination of power. I mean, it's basically grunt and go with the 7-liter V8 in that thing. And it really gives it the opportunity to just power through. And I think that's where it has the advantage over the Lexus. It can really take a bit more speed through corners, and that's what's helping Hannah, I think, keep up with Trujillo even with the damage.
Yeah, that panel gap, though, you're right, that probably was detrimental to him. 13 minutes to go in this race, folks. Christian Hannah here trying to chase down Trujillo. Looks like gap to be down pretty quick. Into the chicane. Oh, almost coming into the back of the Lexus there. We are on board now with the helmet cam here. Great camera. I love this so much. As we follow along with this very tense battle, both drivers probably feeling the pressure. Trujillo having the kitchen sink thrown at him at the moment. The Mercedes driver really going to pick and choose his opportunities here. My understanding, though, does that Mercedes have a power advantage on the straight?
Oh, absolutely. Compared to the Lexus, yeah, I think it can stretch its legs a little bit more than the Lexus. But thankfully for BOP, it keeps them as close as possible. But I still believe that Mercedes is just, I think he's just going to be having a lot more off the line through corner exit and then onto the straightaway. He can't really show it because there's not too many long straights. There's no long straights here at Zolder. But you can see that damage is just causing him all kind of issues on these medium to high speed corners on corner exit and entry, with just getting a lot of understeer there. And you can see him just losing time throughout the entirety of Sector 1.
Yeah, he's got no pace. He drops back, but then sectors 2 and 3, he starts to close back up again.
Yeah, I think Trujillo's probably just trying to be a bit cautious there because, he doesn't want to bounce over those curbs and throw away this P5 in this season's third round.
Well, that Lexus does sound good to listen to. I'll tell you that, folks. 11 minutes to go in this race, and it looks as though we've got quite a big chunk of traffic ahead for the twosome here.
Yeah, if he runs into the same problems as Sable did dealing with that traffic, this could be a great thing for Hannah here. He may be able to use this to his advantage, knowing that he's struggling, looks like, for front-end grip. He might be able to get one in there and slide it up on him and, snatch the P5 away from Trujillo.
And Trujillo's probably not going to catch P4 at this rate. P4 being, if I can catch up here.
Looks like it's going to be Moriarty is going to. It's looking like P1 through P4 are probably pretty locked into those provisional finishing positions. But P5 is certainly up for grabs, and if these guys aren't careful, Sosa is not too far back. He's only about 7 seconds back, and we saw from Moriarty's little excursion over the bumps in the first chicane, you can easily lose that time very quickly.
Yeah, lose it quickly. How about lose all of it?
Oh, absolutely. Sosa's got his own problems to deal with, though. He's got Cody Pride breathing down him, and Debon, that earlier battles we saw him with Kakowski has somehow managed to get back ahead of Kukowski. And but now he's getting to deal with, oh no! Looks like we got another spinner there.
That'd
Looks
be
like
Thomas,
that might be Laws.
And he's on the racing line. Jeez. Cody Pride trying to get past there, though. That GTR is like a rocket ship on the straight. My goodness.
Oh, that thing has phenomenal acceleration. Yeah.
I was watching
Thankfully,
that from the
Laws
helicopter.
stayed out of there.
Yeah, I was watching from the helicopter. Came up to Cody Pride, hit the NOS key like in Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, I think Laws is just not having a good race. You can see that car just damaged all over the place from body panel, from front to back, left, right. I mean, I think about the only place he hasn't hit.
Cody's going to run deep there. Cody's run very deep into the right-hander. That has unfortunately undone a lot of the great progress he had been making on those cars. But, folks, Christian Hanna still within touching of that Lexus as we follow them down the pit straight here. The gap down to less than a second, it would seem, so that Mercedes has not let go, and in fact has begun to close up, so maybe that Lexus is starting to lose the pace. He's up trying to have a move up the inside. They're going to make a little contact there, but Hanna did well to back out of that one. Let the Lexus get back ahead. We'll have to reset to go for another move, but luckily that didn't cost him too much. Into the right-hander now from the helicopter. I love this camera angle. This is fantastic. That Mercedes.
Yeah, it looks like Hanna's trying to channel his inner Raffaele Marciello there, the Mercedes-AMG driver in the SRO Series himself, just throwing up the inside and really put off his opponent.
But Trujillo's got a bad exit. A bad exit. The Mercedes pulled ahead. It's a drag race now into the downhill left-hander, and that's the Mercedes in front. Will the Lexus have a go into the chicane? No, he'll tuck back in. Trujillo with a very bad run, and the Mercedes being able to turn it on when it counts, folks. Christian Hanna takes P5 here. 8 minutes to go. Trujillo will have to be thinking about how he'll fight this one back. On board with Trujillo. That Lexus now, he is driving very, very cautiously. Now he's going to have to be thinking about when the best chance for him to make this move. A little traffic ahead. That could help him reignite this battle as Tellis is duty-bound to get out of the way in the chromed-out Ferrari there. Wow, yeah. What a move by Hanna.
It's not looking good for Trujillo there. You know, it looks like he just went a little too deep into the chicane and just bounced it right over the curbs. And that was, Hanna didn't need any more of an opportunity to say thank you for P5 there and really seized it. And I think, you know, this is where you're going to see that discrepancy between the Lexus and the Mercedes. You know, he's gonna struggle here through Sector 1, but he's going to really somehow stretch it out in Sector 2. And it's very surprising with the damage. He's able to pull some advantage going through Sector 2 and 3, which is where you're doing all your low speed and medium speed corners.
Certainly. And with that said, the gap now looks to be, unfortunately, expanding as Hanna's got about 3 car lengths between the two there. So Trujillo, with a nice little gap behind, I think he will probably maybe look to go make a move somewhere later, but I don't think that gap is going to come down at all, folks.
No, I think Hanna's going to pull away here. And, you know, this battle may be done and dusted here for P5, but it's still shaping up to be a good one here just behind him with Sosa and Cody Pride getting very close again.
Oh, yeah, that was Cody Pride earlier who ran deep at one of the braking zones. On board now with Cody Pride in the Japanese rocket ship here. Really trying to get that car turned up. Get the best of Sosa. Both these drivers very quick. Sosa going to just cover him off into the hairpin there. Let's see on the power out on the exit. GTR looking real squirrely. Cody Pride getting very greedy on that throttle, so we'll have to see if he can maybe choose his moments a touch more carefully in the closing stages of this race, folks. 6 minutes to go. That's about 4 more laps by my count. This is PPR Esports ACC last lap battle here. It is Nissan, it is Porsche, it is Japan versus Germany. A classic matchup, folks.
Yeah, you know, it's a little unfortunate there. Cody coming into that final chicane kind of telegraphed where he wanted to go up the inside. I think he's going to have to kind of throw the dummy to Sosa and really just throw it when he's not expecting it to really get that move on. But I think Sosa's going to defend this pretty hard, and that Porsche is going to be pretty handy around here.
I was going to say, though, through the right-hander, that GTR is right on the back, folks, into the braking zone. Cody's going to bump draft him, pull out of the slipstream. Now he's going to have the outside line. Cody's going to the Porsche is going to try to squeeze him. Cody's going to try to come back at him through the chicane. It is close, folks. It is so close here. Now they got a side-by-side drag race down the hill, folks. Cody Pride on the outside. He's going to have the inside line for the next right-hander, though. Late on the brakes into the chicane. Let's see Cody Pride through there. Oh, the Porsche is going to run wide. Cody will not concede. Oh, he will. Oh, wow, he's through. He is through. Brian, in your professional opinion, was that all on the level?
Yeah, it looks like they were trying to go 2x2 in a section of the track. It's not going to happen. And I think Sosa did the absolute right thing there. I think he realized that the move, he had gotten his nose ahead, Cody Pride did. And, I think he did the sensible thing to live to fight another day, not trying to gain an advantage by, an unfortunate forced error there. So I think Sosa did the absolute right thing. I think he's realized, maybe this is just not his fight today.
Unfortunately, it will not be, as Cody Pride will be promoted to P7 there, folks. 4 minutes to go in this race. Looking down our order, we'll have a quick peek one more time at our timetable here. So, in the lead, it is Sable out in that beautiful-looking McLaren, followed by Niels, who had to serve that drive-through earlier. So Niels, unfortunately, that drive-through has snatched us from what would have been, I think, a pretty scintillating finish to this race, folks. Behind them, it is James Warren pulling off that super strat in the number 1 Lexus. And Sean Moriarty, lucky to keep his P4 after trying to go Tony Hawk Pro Skater through the chicane. Behind them, it is Hannah Trujillo, Pride with that overtake we just saw on Sosa through that chicane. Lopez and Debon. Behind them, it is Ruiz, Kiyakowski, Johnson, Marsh, Walker, Wardell, Martin, Mirsky, Couch, Huedes, Tellis, Laws, Huarda. Bringing up the rear, it is the GTR of Buck. So, only 3 minutes and about 45 seconds to go here. It looks as though things are set. Brian, have you got any picks for a driver of the day you're kind of marinating on? Just a couple names if you want to throw them out.
I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with what James Warren did here today. I think he realized that he didn't have the pace to quite get into the front 2 rows of the grid. But the strategy that he employed here today looks like it's really going to pan out for him and getting him another podium here this race. I'd say really well done to Debon, fighting off Kiyakowski almost the entirety of the race as well to get himself into the top 10. As we look further down the grid, I got to say, those are probably my 2 picks between Debon and James Warren today. Phenomenal races from the both of them.
Folks, feel free to let us know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with Brian's picks. I'd be hard-pressed to disagree. I think the Super Strat has paid off. I think, as bonkers as it is, I coming over from the F1 video game world, I just think it's insane that someone would go that deep into the race and just splash and dash and head right back out. But, I always applaud ingenuity. That's what racing is about sometimes. It's not quite just how you drive. Sometimes it's how you manipulate the circumstances around you to benefit yourself. So hats off to the Flexus Racing team and Kiyakowski as well, who gave me a couple Code Brown moments from the broadcaster's chair during those high-speed overtakes. But 2 minutes to go. That would be about a lap and some change here, folks. Your order looks to be pretty set. Niels, of course, with that unfortunate drive-through. Midfield looking pretty stout at the moment.
Yeah, I'm expecting that to be highly competitive. And, for all the viewers out there, this race 3 also represents the transition point for the GT3 season, because after this, we're going to be able to categorize our drivers into multiple classes so that, they can fight not just for overall position, but also class wins and potentially a pro, silver, and amateur championship this year. So it's going to be pretty exciting throughout the entire season. And stay tuned for that.
Oh, that is exciting. That really would add a 3rd and 4th dimension to the racing. It won't just be as simple as overtake and go, because you'll be able to start playing the division game as opposed to just, or the class game rather, as opposed to just the overall point scoring.
Oh, absolutely.
Where do you see a lot of these drivers ending up right now, Brian?
Looking at the last set of championship points, you can definitely expect Sable and Niels to be in the pro category at the top of the stack there. Obviously our current championship leader, Moriarty, will definitely be up there. I would expect James Warren, Hannah, Cody Pride, Sosa, last year's champion. Ruiz was in our top 5 last year, so I would see him there as well. Probably Luke Walker as well. I think Huedes kind of had a bit of an unfortunate day early on. Not only with the stop and go he got for the speeding in the pit lane, but I think he just had a moment, either contact with somebody or just an off. I think we'll see about maybe 9 to 10 drivers in that pro category, maybe even more. As the stewards go through, how to categorize people. And then probably the same thing as we go down the list, probably about, 9 to 10 per or if the gaps are very close, we may do something on the lines of 15 per category, just to kind of spice things up and really set this league apart from others.
That sounds fantastic, and I will be following along with all the action. Folks, if you're interested in finding out more about this ACC league, learning more about these classes and the way we're going to be breaking down what I think is going to be, if not perhaps the most competitive season we've had yet in ACC PPR, come check us out, ppresports.com. It's in the description below. Check us out on Twitter at ppr_esports. We're also on Instagram, same handle there. You'll see us. We got about 19,000 followers. Come slap a like on a meme, or come stay for updates if you want to keep up with all the action on track. But that is the end of the race, folks. That is we're on the final lap at the moment, correct?
Yeah, Sable's going to take this one nice and easy here on this final lap, and just cruise it on home. No unnecessary risk, and celebrate, a win here at the legendary Circuit Zolder here in Belgium.
Congratulations to Sable. He's sandwiched between many of the back markers, so I'll just keep the camera on him. But behind him, it is Niels in P2, and let's have a look at our timetable here. And it'll be James Warren with the Super Strat coming home P3, a 60 lap. Corker here today, folks. Congratulations to our podium winners as Sable will come across the line. Only 2 more corners to go. Congratulations to him, as to all of our other racers who came out today. And folks, if you're just joining us, you can always rewind this and check out all the great action from the circuit. Congratulations to Sable as our drivers will cross the line. Congratulations to everyone. Say it again. I am Best Teon, joined by Brian Faluna. Thanks for sticking with us this Sunday night, this Sunday evening, Sunday morning, wherever you are in the world. We'll be signing off here in just a moment. Brian, any closing thoughts for our friends at home?
This was a fantastic race here. To see the different strategies play out, from the folks who went a little bit short on fuel to long on fuel, and again, something unique that I just don't think you'll see in other leagues. And I think it's going to be something that sets us apart. And we're always looking to expand. So if you are interested, as Beth said, come check us out on ppresports.com. We've got leagues that stretch across F1, ACC. We're even expanding ourselves into Rocket League, iRacing, and a multitude of others. So if you want to look for some outstanding, exciting, fantastic racing, to use all the positive superlatives there, come check it out, and we'd love to have you.
With that said, folks, this has been all of us here at PPR Esports. This is Best Teon. As always, stay classy.